So our first speaker in this session is Adil Babikir. And you might already be becoming familiar with Adil's translation of Mansi. Adil is a Sudanese translator who works between English and Arabic and lives now in Abu Dhabi. His many translations into English have appeared in a variety of publications: the Africa World Press, Banipal, the Los Angeles Review of Books, the Arab Lit Quarterly, and many others. His translation of Tayeb Salih's memoir, Mansi, A Rare Man in His Own Way, published by Banipal Books in 2020, won the 2020 Sheikh Ahmed Translation Award. It's perhaps the most prestigious award for translation from the Arabic into English. And then he has really an impressive list of translations that reads and be perfectly read as an introduction to modern Sudanese and modern Arabic language literature. I will mention, among others, Django, Stakes of the Earth by Abdelaziz Baraka, a wonderful anthology called Literary Sudan's Anthology of Literature from Sudan and South Sudan. Another wonderful book, The Messiah of Darfur by Abdelaziz Baraka Sakin, and a translation into Arabic of The Summer Maze, a collection that some of you will know of short stories by Leila Abu Leila. Then you have also prepared an anthology of modern Sudanese poetry. Also, I think, a very beautiful book published by the University of Nebraska Press entitled The Beauty Hunters, Sudanese Special Poetry, Evolution and Impact. But now we are delighted to hear about Tayeb Salih's non-fiction. I think that is an aspect of his work that is not so well known in languages other than Arabic.
That's true. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. The aim of this presentation is to offer some glimpses from the non-fiction world of Tayeb Salih. While his novels, particularly Season of Migration to the North, have won global acclaim, his non-fiction remains largely unknown outside the Arabic speaking world. So far, only one volume of his non-fiction has appeared in English translation. My enthusiasm for introducing this side of Salih's talent to English readers stems from a deep conviction that his non-fiction is no less rich and engaging than his fiction. It spans a wide range of genres, blending literary criticism and reflections, political commentary, biography, and travel writing, with the same elegance and narrative mastery that define his fiction. His ability to mold his reflections into compelling stories that defy categorization is part of what makes his work so unique. Readers of his nonfiction will not fail to notice that the motives of love, tolerance, and nostalgia, which are firmly rooted in his fiction, are equally prominent in his nonfiction. Tayeb Salih was perhaps far less productive than most of his contemporaries. Yet, with only a handful of pieces written between 66 and 76, he rose to international fame as one of the greatest writers of our time. Apart from his classic Season of Migration to the North and the two-volume novel Al-Shahi, he wrote two novellas, The Wedding of Zayn and The Secret Man. and one collection of short stories, The Dormitory of Hamid. While Salih continued to be in the spotlight among critics and the media, he remained virtually unproductive for almost a decade. His last novel, When the Shah, appeared in two parts in 71 and 76. However, he never seemed bothered by that. And when asked by the media, he would say that writing was never an obsession for him. He wrote only when the urge to write came over him. His true passion, he often pointed out, lay in reading rather than writing. Saleh was repeatedly quoted as saying that he had become a writer by chance, that his venture into writing was an attempt to alleviate homesickness. He found solace in writing about the world he had left behind, the world he dearly missed. That may explain why nearly all his writings were set in the same place, a village in northern Sudan at the bend of the Nile. His creative wellspring remained firmly suited in that place. Departing Sudan for England in his early 20s, he carried with him an unquenchable yearning for home. Season of Migration to the North opens with an emotional passage describing the narrator's return home from Europe after a long absence. The poignant strain of nostalgia in Salih's writings, both fiction and non-fiction, originates from a deep love for his homeland, further deepened by an extended period of residing abroad, nearly his entire life except for the initial 2 decades, and a profound sorrow witnessing his country entangled in perpetual political unrest. Another main driving force of Salih as a writer is an unshaken belief in the power of love and tolerance as a viable antidote of strife. This is evident in almost all his writings. In the Dormitory of Hamid, we hear at the height of the conflict a subtle voice suggesting that there is room for coexistence between the dormitory as a symbol of tradition and spirituality, and the steamer as a means of progress and modernization. In Bandar Shah, the river comes out as the mythological creature, patiently whispering words of wisdom into the ears of the banks, which do not seem to understand. In the same novel, the river tosses out a stranger to the village, who eventually becomes a member of the local community and helps lead it out of perils. Even in season, a novel of conflict and violent confrontation, the voice of the unnamed narrator emerged as the antidote to Mustafa Said's violent crusade of vengeance. Upon his return from Europe, the narrator tells the Jewish people that the Europeans were, I quote, with minor differences exactly like them, marrying and bringing up their children in accordance with principles and traditions, that they had good morals and were in general good people. That voice of tolerance and accommodation radiated into Salih's non-fiction. Starting from the late 80s, Salih appeared in the every week on the last page of the London-based Al-Majalla magazine, and over the next 10 years, captivated readers with fine writings on diverse topics, including literary criticism, political commentary, and reflections on life. These series were later published in a collection of 10 volumes. The collection, co-published by the Beirut-based Riyadh Reis and Abdel Karim Barani Center in Omdurman. It included a volume on Al-Mutanabbi, which contains thought-provoking insights into the birth of this legendary 9th century Arab poet, whom Salih admired immensely. Another two-part volume, Al-Mudi'un al-Nujum, prominent stars, discusses the works of and ideas of some prominent figures from the East and West. The list from the West includes British politician Lord Butler, British journalist Michael Adams, French literary critic and theorist Roland Barthes, British historian and journalist A.J.P. Taylor, French novelist Marcel Proust, if I spell it correctly, and others. There are also others dedicated volumes about Sudan, travel commentary, and other topics. These are the 10 collections, beginning with Mansi, then the Al-Mudi'un al-Nujum, then this travel commentary, and then the Al-Mustanabbi, and then we have Asila and Al-Janadriya. Then we have something about Sudan, and this is the Qira'at al-Mawasi, talking about the seasons, and Khawatir al-Hal, and these are forwards he wrote to many applications by friends and people who asked him to write forwards for these books. So in all his non-fiction writing, including even political commentary, Salih skillfully employs fiction writing techniques to weave texts that seem to slip through the borders of genres. His amazing ability to mold his ideas into a well-knitted narrative is evident throughout this collection. A case in point is Mansi, which appeared in English translation in 2020, thanks to Banipal Booking, who brought it out. It's a unique type of writing, a combination of biography, autobiography, political analysis, a philosophical insight, and great sense of humor. Salih points out from the outset that the person he's talking about is not someone of note. Yet he was important in the eyes of few, including myself, who accepted him as he was and loved him regardless. He was a man who had traversed life's short journey in leaps and bounds, occupied more space than had been allocated for him, and caused quite a clamor within the realm of his existence. Although Salih repeatedly pointed out that all the events in the book were actual anecdotes, many in the Arab world have misread the book as a work of fiction. The confusion has to do with Salih's ability to beguile readers with a compelling narrative he built, which shares many aspects of the fiction writing techniques. But it's also related to Mansi, who has a unique blend of traits typical of a fictional character. A man who lived with at least 3 names and who played at least 8 real-time roles, from a porter to a university lecturer, and from a nurse to a clown. A penniless man who rose to the upper echelons of the British society and married a girl from a prominent English family, a descendant of Sir Thomas More. A man daring enough to cross all security and protocol barriers, presenting himself to Queen Elizabeth at the head of an official Egyptian delegation and engaging in a public debate on a subject he knew little about, with no less than a historian than Arnold Toynbee. In Mansi and in invariably all his nonfiction, Salih comes into the open, liberated from the veil of fiction. Here we come face to face with the author in real life, engaging with people and writing about things and places he comes across in his wanderings around the world. Things and places that often trigger memories of his beloved homeland. Yeah. One of the places Salih wrote about was Asila, once an obscure Moroccan town on the Atlantic coast. Asila burdened into a magnet of writers, poets, and thinkers from around the world. I wonder if Ahmed had been with Salih during one of those festivals.
To Asila?
Yeah.
No, but he talked about it quite a lot.
Yeah. tended into carnival of art and culture. And in his unique writing style, Salih crafted vivid portraits of people whom he engaged with at Asila and elsewhere, along with citations from and reflections on their work. Poetic and overpowering, these writings almost established Asila as another setting parallel to what Hamid, the writer's village and backdrop for almost all his fiction work. The pieces on Asila chronicle how a little known spot evolved into an almost utopian town that won the hearts and minds of special people. His impression of Asila on his first day was that it was more of a village than a town. Its market resembled the souks of North Sudan villages, dusty roads, water in short supply, and feeble and intermittent power. Its sole hotel barely met the minimum expectations of residents. Nevertheless, the town had its charm, with its location on the sea and a castle that stood as testimony to its glorious resistance to Spanish and Portuguese aggression. Paying tribute to the city's master architect, Salih notes that Muhammad bin Isa has achieved a near miracle in Asila. He has set an example worthy of contemplation, an experience much more modest, yet much more viable. In Asila, like a bewitched admirer, Salih takes us on a captivating tour of the events of the annual festival and into the worlds of its distinguished guests and renowned poets, such as Chikaya Otamsi, Rene Dopesser, George Amado, Mazizi Koneni, Ahmed Abdel Hijazi, Laurent and Richard, and others. The Salih's grand panoramic picture of Asila is composed of cinematic scenes of what makes this spot a heaven on earth. Scenes interlaced with lively conversations with figures who became officially part of the place. Frequent use of fiction writing techniques, such as setting, flashback, and flash forward, elevates the writer to a coherent, compelling narrative. But one of the personalities who felt perfectly at home in Asila was the Congolese poet Shikai Otamsi, who Salih says felt at home from day one and took abode there as a bona fide owner. Notes Muhammad bin Isa. His first arrival was on the back of a donkey, as Asila had no other means of transportation. He took residence in the town's only hotel at the souk, and every morning he would go down to the well to fetch water. Perhaps he was dreaming of building a house in Asila next to his friend Ben Isa's in the old neighborhood. Unfortunately, that dream did not come true, for the poet passed away in France in April 1988. No wonder Asila launched a poetry award in his name. Renowned Iraqi poet Laurent and Richard read out a heartbreaking elegy of Shikaya at one of the award events. You whose blow has lent life to the entire globe, don't go away. Asila has grown up, become the prettiest girl on earth. When Asila comes to life, so we do. She can now understand the secret of the tears and laughter in her eyes. She can identify who severed all my 10 fingers, who threw my life into the river, and who trod on my vision. In a cruel twist of fate, Al-Haidari passed away only a few years later when Asila was celebrating Abdel Hijazi's win of Shikaya Otamsi's Poetry Award. When the tragic news came, Salih happened to be the chair of the inaugural session, which he saw the award ceremony. In his words, joy and sadness mixed in a very bewildering way, and it was as though real life suddenly transformed into a poem co-composed by the poet being honored and the poet being mourned, who both happened to have had one-to-one conversations and confrontations with death. Saleh was at his best in Asila, chatting and laughing, attending cultural festivals and local events, taking part in literary discussions with friends, listening to poetry from Africa and Latin America, and drawing comparisons with Arabic and Sudanese poetry, all the while pondering why other places in the world could not replicate Asila's example. He was delighted to discover in Asila a living counterpart to his character Zain, and found himself trailing him through the town, mesmerized by the striking similarities between the two. I would really recommend that everybody read this piece about Saleh. We're talking about the guy. He almost found Zain in real life and started watching him clean. He was the first to come to the mosque, cleaning, making the bakhur and everything, and giving a helping hand to everyone he knows. It was almost, except for maybe the facial features, but it was a striking similarity. Yet one of the secrets behind Saleh's ecstatic love for Asila, apart from the above, was that he saw in it his lost world, a world of innocence, peace, and harmony. As noted earlier, one of the main drivers of Saleh as a writer is his firm belief in the power of love and tolerance as the viable antidote of strife. This is evident in almost his non-fiction, in all his fiction works. In Mariyut, volume 1 of the two-part on the Shah, we hear Tahir al-Rawasi telling him, life is nothing without love, and whoever leaves this world after winning the heart of even a single person is a sure winner. In real life, Saleh was one of the most loved persons, not only for his literary stature, but also for his personal traits. Polite and modest, passionate and warm-hearted, he was a proud son of Sudan, always eager to showcase his country's treasures and icons. During the literary events and in private gatherings with friends, he often drew striking parallels between Sudanese poets and the classical Arab tradition. His readings from the verse of the legendary Bedouin poet Al-Habdallu, for instance, often prompted comparisons with Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma and Rumma and other Arab poets. In one of Al-Habdallu's poems, the image of a herd of oryx crossing the Butana wilderness was to his eye like a painting from the Italian Renaissance era. In his village Fermapol, he was held in high regard from an early age. His return from abroad brought joy to the entire community, especially his mother, Aisha, who would always slaughter a fat lamb in celebration. And it was well known that whoever first delivered the news of his arrival would be rewarded with no less than a pound, a small portion in those days. His brother Bashir, 10 years his junior, noted that his returns to the village during school vacation never generated the same excitement as Tayyib's. This was partly because Bashir came home more often. He recalls a humorous incident in which a woman mistook him for Tayyib when she saw him stepping off a lorry. Eager to claim the comedy reward, she was about to rush to break the news to their mother, but upon a closer look, her excitement faded. Oh no, that's Bashir. He muttered in disappointment. The villagers' love for Tayyib, according to Bashir, had nothing to do with the fact that he's a famous literary figure, but rather because he's a caring son of the community, a truly down-to-earth person. Tayyib recounts an amusing encounter with a relative of him during one of his rare visits to the village. The man, having read some of Tayyib's stories, was excited to know that Tayyib's writing, I quote, closely resembled our everyday speech, except that it has a bit of law, meaning it was slightly embellished or twisted. Tayyib smiled and explained to the enthusiastic relative that this law is what we call literature or creative writing. Salih writes with a loving heart. This is evident in all his non-fiction writings, including even furious political commentaries. At the height of his tirade against the brutal atrocities of the Islamist regime in the early 1990s, he cried out, "Where did those people come from? Were they not breastfed by mothers like the rest of us? Don't they love their homeland as we do? Then why do they seem to hate it? Why does it look as though they were bent on devastating it?" Love is perhaps the single word that best captures Mansi, a memoir of a larger-than-life figure. It runs just as strongly through his writings on Asila and the Ganadriya festival in Saudi Arabia, and through his panoramic reflections on cities around the world. Saleh literary reviews, especially those on the great Arab poets, Al-Mutanabbi, Al-Ma'arri, and Abu Nawas, and his vivid portrayals of some of the world's finest writers and intellectuals, offer compelling evidence of his deeply held belief that the best criticism, to Amar's point, arises from love. Unfortunately, these profiles resist meaningful summarization. This is because Saleh crafts them as finely wrought portraits shaped with a sculptor's precision, where the omission of even the smallest detail risks diminishing the integrity of the whole. Still, just to give a feel of these writings, here a couple of snapshots, please. This is a portrait. This is how he described his first encounter with the Haitian poet René Despecer. I leave it to you to read it. Okay. And another extract from his portrait of Lord Butler. Interested in the last sentence, in the last few lines. Reading this, I could not help but feel that Saleh was perhaps unconsciously speaking of himself. This, by and large, is only a brief excursion into Saleh's nonfiction. The collection reveals the depth and variety of his reflections, offering glimpses into his literary, cultural, and personal world. It stands as a testament to his superb writing. Unfortunately, given the limited time available, I have not been able to do full justice to all the volumes. In his characteristic modesty, Saleh does not appear eager to claim credit for these superbly crafted pieces. When asked about the secret behind their powerful appeal, he just said, "I'm merely an echo of the universe's hearing sound. I just listen to these sounds and imitate them." And to your point, he is a true Sophie, a Sophie in his own way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adil, for this beautiful and enlightening presentation.